Okay, so dear students, now we move to the next topic that is very important in Java. Uh, it's about multi-threading, multi-threaded programming. Just want to double check it's recording. Okay, so we have completed exception handling. I hope that you people are working on the assignment. Remember that submission deadline is tomorrow. Uh, in the meantime that you complete assignment, I'm going to upload this video on multi-threaded programming, which is yet another very strong feature of Java. So here's the concept of multi-threading. I mean, there are people who always feel confused the difference between multi-threading and multitasking. This is also one of the frequently asked questions during interviews. People will ask you, what is difference between multi-threading and multitasking? The way they will ask you, what are the three basic principles of object-oriented programming? So you have to understand this concept first. I mean, I would strongly suggest that do not jump to the programming part, understand the concept first, and then jump to the programming part. Read this concept from complete reference, as well as I would suggest refer a couple of internet resources to understand the difference between multi-threading and multitasking. Remember, a thread is nothing but a part of a program, or you can say a path of execution inside a program. So you can say a thread is a kind of subtask. A thread is a kind of sub program. In a single program, we might be having, say, for example, 5, 6 tasks, and each of those tasks might be performed by a thread, and that runs separately. Remember, thread in Urdu, we call it dhaga. So it actually, there are multiple dhagas. They are actually, each of them is following its own path. And the responsibility of that dhaga, of that path, would be to complete one task. Say, for example, this is one program, PowerPoint, which I'm presently running. If I give, say, for example, print from here, then you know that this PowerPoint's program will be having two separate threads. One thread which will be sending all these contents to the printer so that printer can get the data and we see it in the hard form. And the second thread, if I start this program from here, that second thread will be responsible of executing or running this presentation. So in this small PowerPoint program, we have these two subtasks, and each of these tasks might be performed by a separate thread. Now just imagine if this multi-threading is not available, then everything would be in series. And when everything is in series, you mean that you are wasting a lot of your time, you're wasting a lot of resources from the CPU. So obviously, I mean, many times when you're performing a task that might not be using all the CPU cycles. So if you have a fine-grained control over how to use CPU cycle by using multi-threading, that is a very good facility to have. Right. Okay. Then there is also multitasking. This is the process-based. A process is a basically program, and thread-based. When you say it is actually a thread is a part of a subprogram. So when you say process-based multitasking, there you mean that you are running multiple programs. I mean, all these modern machines, they are multi-processing. You can see even at the moment when I am uh, running my laptop, I have this Zoom running in background. I'm using PowerPoint. Even this clock is running at the taskbar. So you can see, yeah, these modern machines, they are pretty much multitasking, both in the way process based as well as in the thread based. Process based means that you have got multiple processes, multiple programs, and all of them are running different tasks, and simultaneously you are able to perform all these tasks. And then thread based means you are performing multiple tasks within the program. Like in PowerPoint, you are having this execution as well as printing at that time. But when you have In background, Zoom running, clock is showing the time, PowerPoint is running. All these are multiple programs, and they are also able to perform the multitasking. So you need to understand that when you talk about multitasking, it will be process based or it will be thread based. When you have got this process based, it means that multiple programs are working concurrently. They are working in parallel. They are working simultaneously. But when you talk about thread based, it means that there are multiple jobs that a single program is performing, like this PowerPoint or any other program that can perform multiple tasks simultaneously. Uh, Remember, I mean, in old days, we used to have uh, only one processor. Uh, I mean, even around 10, 12 years, we did not have multiple cores in our processor. And now we have got Core i5, Core i7, Core. I mean, you know that these are the recent developments. Even in the old days, when we did not have multiple cores in a processor, we were not exploiting the processor capability fully. Because if you have got, say, for example, Pentium 5 or Pentium 4, these machines were quite strong, and we were probably utilizing it up to only 10-20% at the time when you are performing a small task like processing Word, like working with PowerPoint, or maybe working with Notepad for Java programming. These tasks are not very heavy duty. So there, even we were not able to fully utilize the potential of those single core, machines. Uh, there, we say when one program is not requiring CPU attention, we could have, suspended the execution of that program, and then another program could have been entered at that time to share the CPU cycles. Remember, those days we were not really performing multitasking. We were not really having a kind of multi-threading, but a kind of illusion of multi-threading. It was, we had just one core, and that one core was being shared by multiple programs, but that sharing was so abrupt, that sharing was so fast, that time sharing of CPU cycle was so seamless that we thought it is multitasking, but it was basically not multitasking or multi-threading. It was actually sharing a CPU cycle. But these days, now we have got, all these core, multi-core processors where real multi-threading and real multitasking is absolutely possible. We have got Core i7, so one core can handle many tasks, and you know that when you have got 7 cores, tasks can be tens of the tasks, 20s of the tasks. So these, present day machines are extremely efficient in handling multitasking. But in old days, we really did not have multitasking. We used to do time sharing, but that time sharing was extremely efficient that we felt it is multitasking, but though it was not multitasking. But these days, with the advent of these multiple cores in i7 and i5, this multitasking is really multitasking. When you talk about Java's thread model, before the advent of this multi-threading approach, there was actually an event loop with pooling approach. And that event loop with pooling approach, you used to have a kind of main event handler, and that used to see who needs more CPU cycle, and then it accordingly executes one, thread. And if for some reason that thread is blocked, that whole machine will go down, because there was no way to come out of this blocking, because we really did not have multi-threading approach. In that approach, if you are executing one task at a time, you usually start a task, and then when it finishes, then you start another task. And when that task was in the process, you had no method of utilizing CPU cycle if that task is underutilizing CPU. So at that time, you used to say that, okay, there's a task, it will be started when this completes, and event will be generated. We will take another task from the pool, and then CPU cycle will be allocated to the second task, and this uh, event generation and then pooling approach was continued till all the tasks are performed. But the drawback was obviously if one of those tasks is blocked for some reason, for example, it is waiting for input from user, and if user does not provide input, rest of the life, that task will be waiting for the input, and then no event will be generated. It means that whole CPU cycles will be wasted, because at that time the task is waiting for the input is not available, and you really do not have any mechanism to shift control to another task. So that is the reason why uh, uh, Java came up with the concept of multi-threading. I'm not saying it is the Java which brought this concept first, but to the programmer, the control to the programmer was in true sense given by Java. Otherwise, I mean, in past we had operating system like Windows. They used to have, a kind of illusionary multitasking, multi-threading. But the control that was given to the programmer by using Java, it was never available before. Remember, when you are having multi-threading, it means that you can have a thread which will be in running state. It will be ready to run. It can be suspended. I mean, this is the advantage. In this approach, when you have got even loop pooling approach, you have a thread, you execute it, you wait for its finish. Unless it finishes, you cannot really move to the next thread. uh, and that finish event has to be generated in this pooling approach. Otherwise, you cannot shift to the next thread, you cannot shift to the next task. But when we talk about multi-threading, there we have got all these different states. I mean, if a thread is running, okay, it will be getting maximum chunk of CPU cycle. If it is ready, it means that in a moment it will be running. uh, but then a thread can be suspended. I mean, if it is waiting for user input, okay, let us suspend it for a moment, because in any case we are wasting CPU cycle. So you might say, I am going to keep this thread on suspend and then give a CPU cycle to another thread, right? And then suspended thread can be resumed, it can be blocked, and if it has done everything, it can be terminated. Even it can be terminated without that thread completing its task. So you actually had better control as a programmer how threads are running. And by the way, a thread can also sleep. The way few of our students are sleeping in the class, a thread can also sleep, right? So all these, uh, capabilities were given to the programmer thanks to Java programming. Uh, in Java multi-threading, threads can have priorities. These priorities are nothing but integer values. And remember, these integer values are relative. If I say my thread has a priority 6, you really don't know what does it mean. But if I tell you that my thread has got priority 6 and there is another thread with the priority 7, then you can compare. Then you can say, yes, my thread is having lower priority than another thread. So remember, these priority numbers are relative. Although they are numbers, they are integer numbers, but then their meaning can only be understood when they are compared with the other thread priorities. So these numbers are relative. I mean, we'll see them in practice, how to state thread priority and how to ensure that they can be executed. Remember, when you've got multi-threading, then you need a scheduling mechanism. When I say scheduling mechanism, it actually decides that how threads will be executed. I mean, one approach is preemptive approach and another approach is non-preemptive approach. And preemptive approach, you say a running thread can be suspended in favor of a high priority thread. You say that um, a thread can voluntarily, relinquish all the CPU cycles so that another high priority thread can be executed. And non-preemptive, you say, no, all these resources are mine. I will complete. I will not honor the thread priorities. I will complete my execution. Only then I'll, kind of free all the CPU resources. So this scheduling mechanism will actually decide how multi-threading is actually being managed. Because you need to understand, I'm not sure if you people have covered operating system, but when you reach to the operating system course, there's a very important topic of task scheduling. When you talk about task scheduling, we have got a kernel, we have got a scheduler, which actually takes a decision about how much time should be given to a task and how CPU is going to be shared. Some of the tasks are preemptive, other are non-preemptive. When you say preemptive, you means that they can voluntarily release CPU resources in favor of other high priority threads. When you say non-preemptive, there you have got kids who say no, we are not going to free the CPU resources because we entered to the CPU first, so we'll finish our execution, only then we will free our resources, right? Then, I mean, in preemptive scheduling, if you've got threads which are having same priority, if say for example, thread 1 is running with priority 4, and then thread 2 and thread 3 are entered into the queue with priority 5, it means that in preemptive scheduling, ideally you would say the thread with the priority 4 should stop itself, and now it is the responsibility of scheduler to take a decision that either thread 2 or thread 3 will get execution time, because both of these threads are having priority 5. So the one solution is the round robin approach, I mean, in which a small time slice will be allocated to each of the thread, and then in round robin fashion they can complete their execution. When I say in round robin fashion, I mean that thread 1 will execute for 1 second, then thread 2 for 1 second, then thread 1 for 1 second, then thread 2 for 1 second. You know that they will be getting equal share of CPU cycle, and they will be executed one after other, right? But you know that again, there are different scheduler which take different decisions based on what policies have been installed in the scheduler, right? Okay, then there is a very important concept of thread synchronization. I mean, remember when you're doing multi-threading, then there is always a chance of corrupting the resource which is being shared in common. Say, for example, if there are two threads, one thread is writing, another thread is reading, and if both of them are reading and writing at the same time, you know that you are bound to lose some information. If you give more priority to reading, then you might be reading less text because the writer has not still completed his writing. Similarly, if you give more priority to writer, then a reader might be waiting for too long. So when you talk about multi-threading, you have to ensure that because of multi-threading, resources are not being corrupted. You're not losing any part of information. Synchronization is extremely important when you've got multi-threading. I mean, sometimes even deadlock appears. We will come back to the concept of deadlock and synchronization, but that is also very much important. I mean, in that deadlock situation, both the threads might be waiting for each other. Uh, we say you first, you first, you first, and both of them are actually waiting for other thread to complete its execution. So obviously, this type of deadlock can appear. This is just like, I mean, when two guys are traveling in a bus and both of them are fighting on kiraya mein dunga, kiraya mein dunga, kiraya mein dunga. You know, at that time, the guy who's collecting kiraya, he will be in trouble. Okay, यार ये decide कर ले कि किराया किसको देना है. So it's a kind of deadlock. If both of them are fighting indefinitely, you know that they will never be able to pay the kiraya. So obviously, uh, when you have got multi-threading, this thread synchronization is extremely important. They introduce the concept of monitor. This concept is not the Java concept. It is the concept from operating system. They say those resources which you believe that they are potentially being accessed by multiple threads and there is a chance for them to be corrupted because of you first or you first approach, or maybe I first or I first approach, then those type of resources must be kept inside the monitor. It's a kind of box, and when they are inside the box, only one thread can enter at a time. If another thread comes in and if he sees that inside the monitor or inside the box one thread is already residing, then the second thread cannot enter into that. Once thread 1 completes its work inside the monitor, he will leave and then second thread will enter. So this way they can implement the concept of monitor and ensuring synchronization between the threads. We'll come back to this concept when we are implementing synchronization and multi-threading, but this is one of the important concepts in programming, in multi-threaded programming. And this is possible because Java very clearly gives some procedures how threads will be talking to each other. I mean, thanks to Java programming, we have got some fantastic messaging between threads. I mean, one thread can inform to other thread that come back after 5 seconds, right? One thread can inform to other thread that please stop yourself, I am coming. I have more urgency than you, so you can leave, right? So this type of messaging is a very mature in Java. That is the reason why Java's multi-threading got a very strong attention from programmers community. Yes, these things are already existing in operating system, but as I told you earlier, the control of all these things to programmer at the high level was actually gifted by Java. Now let us see what is thread in Java. You by now you must be able to guess it that in Java everything is object. It means thread is also an object. Exception is an object. You will see that in graphical user interface, all these components, all these graphical units like button, like menu, all these will also be object, because Java is 100% object-oriented programming language. So except those primitive data types, everything is object. So yes, you have guessed it correctly. In Java, a thread is also an object, right? A thread is an object which might be performing a task, and the good thing is that object can be concurrently executed with other objects, right? So from the programming perspective, from the Java perspective, you can say that when you say multi-threading, you are actually executing multiple objects in parallel. And because it is an object, so the class of that object must be either extended from thread or it should implement the runnable interface. I mean, these are the two ways how you can make your class as a thread or as a runnable. I mean, then if you create object of your class, it will act like a thread. It will act like a small part of the program or subtask inside the program. So now if you have a program which has to perform multiple tasks, then those multiple tasks you can allocate one task to each thread. Say for example, you say one of the job of your program is to read a file from internet, and if that file is 5 GB, then you should not have single threaded program. You say that this file is being downloaded and then you perform a task. Obviously this 5 GB may take ages. So how about, and remember that the object which is downloading data from internet may not require all the resources of CPU, hardly maybe 0.001%. So remaining 99% you'll be wasting the CPU time. So at that stage, if you say, okay, one of the object or one of the thread is downloading the data, and I'm having another thread which is going to process on the data which has been downloaded so far. So rather waiting for 5 GB data complete its download, you say, okay, one thread is dedicated to downloading the data and another thread is actually keeping an eye on the downloaded data and performing some text processing. It might be counting how many vowels are there in the data which is being downloaded from the internet. So the second thread does not need to wait for all 5 GB data to complete its download and then start the process of counting vowel. It can in parallel do the tasks. So maybe there's a situation when 5 GB data completes its download. At that very moment, your counting a vowel also completes because the thread 2 was also completing its job. So you can see that in this way, we can save a lot of CPU cycles. As I told you earlier, if you want to create your own exception, then you will have to make your class as a subclass of exception class. So here, if you want to make your own thread, you have to make your class as a subclass of the thread class. I mean, see the beauty of Java. You understand the concept of object-oriented programming, everything else is just walk in the park. You will be understanding all these concepts very easily. And remember, object-oriented programming is not only about Java. Every new programming which is coming to the fold is actually following the approach of this object orientation. I mean, you might be very crazy about learning Python, but believe me, if you get a good grip on Java, then learning Python will be very easy for you, right? Okay, so when you create your class and make it subclass of thread class, it means object of your class will actually be a thread, and inside that these methods will be accessible to you. You can get name of the thread, you can get priority of the thread, uh, you can check if it is alive, uh, join, wait for the thread to terminate, run, an entry point for the thread. I'll come back to these methods, don't worry if you don't understand it, but this is just a list of method that is available inside the thread class as well as in runnable. I mean, it is Java, so it's your choice. You either make a subclass of thread class, or you can make your class as a thread if you implement runnable. I mean, we usually go for this option when our class is already subclass of another class, because you know that Java does not support uh, a class multiple inheritance. It means that if your class is already subclass of another class, then even if then you want to make it a thread, you cannot simply say my class extend from your class and then extend from a thread. That's not possible. You will have to then implement runnable, because multiple inheritance is not possible. Right. I hope you got this concept. I'll come back to this. Don't worry if you do not grab this concept fully. Remember, these are the important methods that you need to understand. We will be, practicing all of these methods. Now, remember in Java, there is at least one thread, which is, a main thread. And as soon as you execute your program, immediately main thread starts. And this main thread is actually the thread in which your main method is running. And this is a kind of father thread. This ends when main method ends. It actually ends in the lost. All other threads which main thread has created, when they complete their execution, only then this main thread will be ended. And remember, this thread is by default created by JRE. You don't need to create this. It will be automatically created when you execute your Java program. And remember, all these classes which you have been creating so far, in which you have got main method, it was actually a thread, a main thread, right? So let me give you an example. Then you will get a very good idea of it. Maybe I can run Notepad. I'm now seriously thinking that we can now, because we have enough practice of Java syntax, we can now shift to NetBeans or IntelliJ or any other IDE which will make your life easier. My recommendation would still be you use Notepad, but if you are lazy, then these IDE environments can also be used. I don't think I have NetBeans installed on this machine, or maybe IntelliJ. No, even that is not installed. So maybe in my next lecture, I will be using these IDEs. Okay, so let's write a simple program in which we'll be playing with the main thread. Uh, Class my, maybe I say thread demo. All right. Here I say I've got public static void name string arg, right? Okay. So here, what I'm going to do, I say thread t equal to t dot current thread. I think it is current thread or main thread. Current t dot current thread. Is it current thread or get thread? Inside thread class, we have, yes, it is current thread. So it will return a thread, and this method is inside thread class, and because this is static, so we can call it with the name of class. And this thread class is actually in java.lang, because I'm not importing anything. So you got the idea that this must be inside the java.lang package. So this will actually give me an a reference to the current thread. The current thread in which this main method is running. The current thread, which is actually the thread represented inside my class, this thread demo. Right. So when I say a thread.current thread, this will give me a reference to the thread which is currently running, which is actually main thread. Right. Let us just print it. Let's see what it prints. No, I'm not using Python. I'm using Java system.out dot println. I print t. Right. So this will actually print information about current thread. Let's save it. VPL exception handling, code, okay, multi-thread, right? Multi-thread. Okay, so I call it, it is thread demo dot java. I need to copy the path. Okay. Control C. Okay, CMD, CD, this, okay, path equal to C program files. No. Program file, Java, then Java, JDK, then, right. Let's Java C working, CLS, at the D, okay, Java C, thread demo. It has been compiled, right? Java thread demo. Java thread demo. Java thread demo. .com. THREAD. Thread public static void main string ART. Okay. I miss you all. I mean, had you been around, you would have told me what is wrong immediately. Thread demo dot class Java thread demo. Okay, so you can see here, it has printed thread. This is the name of the thread. It is main, right? And this is the priority of the thread, which is 5. And this actually is a kind of group of the threads which it is belonging to. So in this case, the group name is main and thread name is main, and its priority is 5. We'll see to play with all these three at some later stage. We'll see how to change the thread group, how to change its priority. But for the time being, let's change thread name, right? You know that here we have got get name method, so its corresponding method must be set name, right? So we can come back here, we can write here t dot set name my thread. So now the name for this thread should not be main, but name of this thread should be my thread. Let's take it. Okay, so I compile it, and then we run it. Come on, demo. Right. So you can see here, before setting the name, it's main, right? But after setting the name, it is my thread, right? So this is how, I mean, by using set name method, you can change the name of the thread. I mean, this is very important. When you have multiple threads, the name of those threads must be those which are actually tasks of the thread. If that is not the case, then you'll be running in trouble. Right, so the default name is main, but you can update it by using t.set name. Okay, now remember inside this thread method, we've got hundreds of methods. We can play with those few. For example, let's do one thing. I say for integer I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, uh, and then see here what I do. System dot out dot print ln I print I, right? But before printing I say p dot sleep, p dot sleep for 1000 seconds, right? For not 1000 seconds, it is 1000 millisecond, I believe. Sleep, suspend a thread for a period of time. The sleep method actually sleep for millisecond. So the parameter that I'm passing here, I say t dot sleep. It means current thread should sleep for 1000 milliseconds. 1000 milliseconds means 1 second. It means that every time loop runs, thread will sleep. It means it will do nothing, and then print I. So this time it is same program we've been doing since our childhood, but this time we'll be printing I with some a sleep interval. Right? Let's see if it works. Okay, so Java C thread demo dot Java. Okay, Java thread demo. Come on, I did not save it. I was wondering why it is working. Okay, right. Mm, okay, see. Okay. Okay, now see here. Uh, Error, unreported exception, interrupted exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. I hope you understand the error. Right, they are saying that if you are calling sleep method, it might throw a checked exception. So interrupted exception is actually a checked exception. And you know that checked exception, you should either provide try and catch block for it, or better you can use throws keyword, right? So I have got these two options. One options can be I keep this interrupted exception in with the throws. So I can write here because I'm feeling lazy. I say throws interrupted. Is it double T or single? Interrupted. Okay, interrupted exception. So I say this might throw interrupted exception. I hope it should be okay. Right. So you can see it has been compiled. Java thread demo. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right. So you can see here between each print there is a pause, there is a delay, and that delay is because of the sleep method. Right. So here I have used throws, but you know that I could have also done by using this try and catch block. So I can write a try. I keep this whole try loop inside. Whole loop inside try block, and then I can provide here catch and interrupted exception key, and then simply printing the error. Okay, printing key. That's it. Right. This should also work. I have saved it. Java C thread demo interrupted exception. Okay, interrupted exception. Okay, okay, control Z. Exception. Come on. Okay, right. Java C. So this will obviously have same impact. Uh, just to increase one more zero, you know that the delay will be even more visible. Thread demo. So you can see 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is now taking more time. Right. Okay, so you got the concept of multi-threading. You also know how to play with the main thread, with the current thread. Uh, I stop this video here. When you come back in the next video, we will be discussing about how to create our own thread and how to do real multi-threading. Remember, these topics are extremely exciting. I strongly recommend that you listen my video, but at same time, please give a thorough reading to the book, because if you do not read book, you cannot be a good programmer. This is an important phase of your life. You are learning, first modern language, Java programming. So you must have a very good expertise on it. And earning expertise really cannot be earned without reading book. So reading book is always, mandatory. You do not rely only on my lectures, but also do reading. With these words, I end this video here. And when I come back, I will be discussing on creating our own trades. Thank you very much.